I have to say, the GMT800 Chevy Tahoe is unanimously known as the American family SUV. More and more people have been getting into four-wheeling and overlanding, and most people choose to flock towards Toyotas and Jeeps, but why not a Chevy? Who says the Tahoe can't be a good budget overland vehicle? Like they say, nothing works like a Chevy truck.
So bring out the sun, bring on the fun.
Bring on the fun.
You've got the good.
You've got the good.
Get out and run. Bring on the mud. Bring on the mud.
Bring on the muck.
Bring home the bacon in a Chevy truck. Tough on the job, easy on the bug. Nothing works like a Chevy truck.
This Tahoe in particular is driven by my buddy Julian. It's a 2002 Chevy Tahoe LT. It's a pretty loaded up LT because it has leather, OnStar, and a few other features. But also, since it's an LT, it has the 5.3 liter Vortec 5300 V8. People love this engine so much, they put it in almost everything. People swap their engines into this engine into Miatas, Volvo 240s, literally whatever. But stock, this makes 285 horsepower and 325 pound-feet of torque. Not bad power figures, but this thing is 6,000 pounds. However, the engine is torquey enough to move itself out of its own way. This Tahoe is also four-wheel drive, and it has the optional G80 automatic rear locker. I'll get into that later. This thing has 176,000 miles on it, which to me isn't a terrible amount, but look at it, it's still pretty sharp. So clearly this Tahoe isn't bone stock. First, it has a 2-inch lift kit from Rough Country, which is decent for the price, but I would definitely recommend a suspension system from BDS Performance or something that's just a little bit higher quality, because this Rough Country system that's on this Tahoe is already worn out and it's only been about 2 or 3 years. Also, this has larger 33-inch tires. They're 285/75 R16s. They're on the same stock alloy wheels, which I personally like a lot. And these are BFG KO2s, which are pretty popular in the off-road community. A stock 02 Tahoe has 8.4 inches of ground clearance. Approach angle is 19.8 degrees and departure is 27.3 degrees. A four-wheel drive Tahoe with the 5.3 liter V8 can tow up to 8,700 pounds. The Tahoe sits at 78.8 inches wide and 198 inches long. So for being a 20-year-old vehicle, these GMT800 Tahoes, Suburbans, Silverados, whatever, have a pretty techy four-wheel drive system. It's push button, ooh, because a lot of vehicles at this era had just normal levers like the 4Runners and everything like that. And since this is just like a 4Runner, how it's body on frame, it's a rear-wheel drive based SUV. So in 2 high, it's rear-wheel drive. You also have 4 high and 4 low, just like every other four-wheel drive. But this also has a 4-wheel auto setting. Here's something from the owner's manual from Chevy. When driving your vehicle in auto 4-wheel drive, the front axle is engaged, but the vehicle's power is sent only to the rear wheels. When the vehicle senses a loss of traction, the system will automatically engage 4-wheel drive. Driving in this mode results in slightly lower fuel economy than 2 high. So like I said at the beginning of this video, this Tahoe has the optional G80 automatic limited slip rear locking differential. Chevy says if there's at least a 100 RPM difference between both rear wheels, the differential will act like a limited slip and then lock both the wheels together like a true locking rear diff. But you can't control the rear locker inside the vehicle just like other cars. I would say this is one of the most desirable features to have if you're looking for one of these or a Silverado. However, because of this, and because it's 20 years old, this does not have traction control. Okay, so what I'm gonna be doing now is showing you how 4 low works, possibly 4 auto. 4 high is pretty self-explanatory, and I'd like to try to demonstrate that G80 rear locker. This is the best I have. That's only 20 minutes from my house, so bear with me, but there will be an off-road video coming up in the future when Julian is actually back home. So I think the interior of these older Tahoes has really aged well. It doesn't give you much of a dated look to it because Chevy trucks interiors are still kind of similar, but you know, techie in their own ways. But this has a lot of creature comforts in it because this is a pretty loaded model. It has leather seats, they're power. The seats in this are pretty comfortable. They're not that supportive, but this is a Tahoe. It's great on the highway. It's great to just cruise around in. You do have armrests, which are really helpful. You also have memory seats, heated seats, electric windows, automatic driver window. These don't have power folding mirrors. That was an option on the Yukon. The Yukons also had these little turn signal indicators on the mirrors themselves. But getting in, since this is lifted, it's a little bit higher, but I honestly like the higher ride anyway. But the interior of this, it's still classic. It's just classic GM. It still has hints of the 90s in it, which I honestly like. Like the gauges have so much information. You have oil pressure, voltage, and coolant temperature over there, and of course the fuel needle. And the gauges on these GMT800s is something else that's known to go out. Just depends, I don't know, it's just if you're lucky or not. I love all the switch gear over here. You have automatic headlights on this model as well, and here's the four-wheel drive select. And you know, just like any other four-wheel drive, if you want to get into 4-low, you have to make sure you're in neutral first. Then you can push 4-low, and then you can just pop in and out of 2-high or 4-auto. For people that are just getting into one of these, this is where the rear wiper control is. This controls the fog lights, and the wiper controls for the front wipers are over here. And there's actually something pretty interesting about the front wipers. Here's the key, you know, just like old GM. This has a Flowmaster 40 series muffler on it. But for the front wipers, you control it with this little rotating knob over here. But also, look at the wipers themselves when I do the spray. This is high-tech stuff here, people. The washer nozzle is in the headlight. I mean, in the windshield wipers. Basic GM radio, AC Delco, theft lock. But these have single-zone automatic climate control. Younger models, I think 03 and newer, 03 to 05 had dual zone climate control. This just has dual zone for, well, single zone in the front, and then you have the rear zone over here. And something that shows the truck's age is a tape deck over here, but it also has a CD player. These also had OnStar. This doesn't work, but OnStar, if you still paid for it in one of these, still would work. The glove box, there's plenty of space. The center console, there's also plenty of space, and a nice tray over here for your phone or whatever you want in here. The rear seat is also pretty spacious. It's more spacious than my XC90, but this is 10 inches longer. So I have great legroom, great headroom, because, you know, this is a square SUV, but I can fit my feet under the seat. I have a lot of legroom. The seat is in my driving position, and I'm 5'8". You have rear audio controls over here and more rear climate controls up here. So if you're in the back and you want to control your own temperature, you can. But like I said, the second row is pretty roomy, and the seats are just like the front, very soft and plush and comfortable for long distance driving, but they're not supportive, which is still okay. You have a pretty big center armrest over here. My camera is under it, but pretty big armrest over here with 2 cup holders and a little tray for food. I like how it kind of neatly folds up. These seats fold flat. It's a 60-40 split. Just like older SUVs, this is not different to any of them. The bottom comes up and then the top folds in front of it. But speaking about cargo room, that's where this thing really shines. First, I really like the tailgate of these. You could get different tailgates on this. You could get this swing up tailgate, and then you could also get the barn doors. I like this more than the barn doors, but I also like just how easy it is. You know, you just pull it, and it still has the gas shocks that work pretty well. And you also have the popping up rear window. I wish SUVs still did this because it's so useful. If you have dogs, they like this. The only SUVs out now that have this type of window are the 4Runner and the Sequoia. But the Chevy trucks don't do that anymore. And there's a thing that the FJ Cruiser people can get. I don't know if they make something for the Tahoe, but it's just a prop rod that you can keep this thing open if you're on the trail. But I wouldn't recommend that for long drives. Anyways, the rear area of these things is pretty spacious. It's kind of the same size as my XC90, bigger than something like a 4th gen Toyota 4Runner, or especially a 3rd gen. These also have a 3rd row seat because you could fit up to 9 people in here. With the LS model, you could get a bench in the front, so 3 in the front, 3 in the middle, and 3 in the back. The 3rd row, since this is a truck, it's kind of shallow. Your knees are going to be up, but legroom isn't too much of an issue, but I wouldn't really fit big people back here for too long. But when everything's folded down, you have a lot of space. You could fit all your camping gear on one side and then have a sleeping platform on the other side. That's just if you want to sleep inside, but you do have a roof rack that you could put a rooftop tent on this, but that's really going to cut the aerodynamics or just make it a real brick. I have to mention the difference in throttle response from the Tahoe to my XC90. This is throttled by cable, so this has an actual mechanical cable. My XC90 is throttled by electronic wire, but the throttle by, I love it. It's fabulous. Like, you barely have to touch it and it just goes. The XC90, I have to put my foot down a little bit more. So that makes me want to get a sprint booster. Now, one may be also wondering, this is a Tahoe with 176,000 miles on it. Is it reliable enough to take me anywhere? I would say so. Of course, this is a 20-year-old vehicle, so there's always going to be some things that will go wrong. Like on this, some coolant lines got old and brittle and then ruptured, and then, the coolant lines had to be replaced. But really, these 5300 engines from Chevy, or just Chevys from this era, were known to be pretty solid. For these Tahoes, Suburbans, and Silverados, Yukons, Escalades, and everything, I would make sure if you're in the northern states, or just in general, make sure that there's no frame rust, because these things are known to rot out once they get any little bit of cancer. Another common issue with these GM vehicles of this era are the brake lines. That's also something that's affected by rust, so just make sure that the frame and the brake lines and pretty much every component under the vehicle is solid. If you do have one of these and you want to preserve the life of it, I definitely recommend, if you do drive it in the winter, to wash the bottom of the frame at least once a month or once a week. To me, I do once a week, but also you could do fluid film or some sort of undercoating to really preserve the bottom of this thing. So personally, I think that these Tahoes are still underrated in the off-road community. I don't see many of these often. I do have to say, these things are wide. This is 4 inches wider than my Volvo XC90, which is 1 inch wider than a 4th gen Toyota 4Runner. So this is 5 inches wider than a 4Runner. So on some tight trails, like in our area, we have Peters Mill and Flagpole Knob. This would be kind of large there. But I'd say if you're just trying to get out in the wilderness, go camping, enjoy nature, this is a perfect candidate because this is the same size as a Toyota Sequoia. Speaking of my XC90, the next video with this thing will be me comparing this against my lifted XC90. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for supporting the channel. I really appreciate it, and I love making videos like this. If you have a vehicle that you'd like me to review, either a car or truck, whatever, let me know in the email below, or you could just put a comment in and then we'll keep in touch. But thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. I'll see you in the next one. Bye, peeps.